Welcome to Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets, today featuring her sister, best-selling author, speaker, and holistic physical therapist, Sally Morgan. Are you looking for a deeper connection with your animals, exploring options in alternative healing modalities, searching for training options that you feel good about? Listen now to Sally as she interviews the top experts that answer your questions to help keep your pets naturally healthy.
Hello, you are listening to Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets, and I am Sally Morgan, Dr. Judy Morgan's sister, a holistic physical therapist for pets and people, and your host today. You can hear this show every Monday and Tuesday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on DreamVision7Radio.com. And today I'm here with my guest, Suzanne Clothier, who I have known of and met a few times in my life for many, many, many years. Suzanne Clothier began working with animals professionally in 1977, and she has a varied background of experience, including obedience training, agility, search and rescue, kennel management, and program development. She is well respected for her humane, effective, relationship-centered training approach to dogs and the people who love them. She was listed in Who's Who in Dogs back in 1997, and she has taught in U.S., Canada, Belgium, Holland, and throughout the world. And she is well regarded as a person who has a lot of expertise with service and guide dog organizations. And some of her work includes these tools that she's developed, one called CARAT, C-A-R-A-T, which is a temperament assessment and scoring system, an enriched puppy protocol, which is a program for puppy development, the relationship assessment tool to look at the dynamics between dogs and their humans, the functional assessment tracking, which is a 15-dimension assessment of the individual dog, as well as the CCC, Connection, Cooperation, and Control, which is a puzzle-based training program. She has served as a committee member on the AKC's Agility Advisory Board and as a committee member of the American Humane Association Task Force for the Development of Humane Standards in Dog Training. And boy, am I grateful for that. Her book, which was revolutionary in the world of dog training, Bones Would Rain from the Sky, Deepening Our Relationship with Dogs, came out in 2002, and the Wall Street Journal has called that one of the top 5 dog books. And it is really a treasure. I highly encourage everyone to read it. In her spare time, Suzanne is a German Shepherd breeder and has 9 generations of Hawks Hunt German Shepherds, which are successful in competitive performance sports, search and rescue, herding, therapy work, and, of course, as her companions. She lives in upstate New York with her long-suffering dog-hair-covered husband, I'm sure, and their family of animals, dogs, cats, rabbits, tortoises, parrots, well, not rabbits, Scottish Highland cattle, donkeys, pigs, and chickens. Welcome to our show, Suzanne.
Well, thank you, and thanks for giving me rabbits. I love rabbits.
I do, too.
When did I acquire rabbits? Good Lord. So, yes, thanks for having
rabbits,
me.
parrots, it all looks the same. So, yes. Suzanne, one of my first things that I learned about you was through my work with Tellington TTouch. People were mentioning your name. So I'd like to know, because many people listening will be TTouch practitioners, how did that work with TTouch inspire or validate your realizations about working with dogs? Did it change how you were or continue what you already knew?
So I met Linda in 1992, maybe 91. I can't quite remember. I think it was 92. And so she just cemented for me what I had already felt, which was that a lot of traditional training approaches didn't make a great deal of sense. And watching her work with a very intense little mare down at the DuPont estate, she pretty much, flew in the face of all the operant conditioning and learning theory rules, and the horse continued to, apparently the parrots are going to be helping us today.
Yes, they have a lot to say.
Between a macaw and an Amazon, I thought they'd be nice and quiet. But so yeah, it just took my little roadmap of life as a trainer and tossed it away. But I knew that was what I wanted, so I had to reorganize and figure out what I was doing that didn't match and what Linda was doing that was cool. And so I spent quite a few years studying with her. I was at the the very first companion animal training that Linda ever did out in Tasuki. So, yeah, spent quite a few years with Linda with horses and other critters, working with Marnie Reeder, working with Copper Love, who's a good friend of mine.
Oh, yes, I love Copper.
Yeah. So learned a lot that way, incorporated it, but just wasn't quite ready. Already had a very full schedule, so becoming a TTouch practitioner just wasn't going to work for me. But that work I have spread far and wide, introduced a lot of people to it, and just feel very lucky that I was able to learn from, Linda and Copper and Marnie. So every now and then I'll pull something out of my back pocket and people think, wait, where did you learn that? It's like, from Linda.
Yeah, boy. She's had such an impact on trainers of horses and dogs and every animal.
Yep. So it definitely informed, it just crystallized. I think that would be a really good way to say. It wasn't that I was on a different path and then took a hard right turn. I didn't. I just realized, that's the better path that I wish to be on. So if I had my money, all trainers would understand a lot of what's taught in TTouch and would have the basics under their belt, especially a lot of the groundwork, but that just doesn't seem to have been the case. So I'm grateful when people do understand that work and can apply it.
Well, and just the whole approach to animals that comes out of the TTouch approach is, I think, very different from the rest of the world's view of animals, which brings us to your relationship-centered training techniques. Can you tell me how you think that work is unique from other training methods, and especially compare it to positive training, because that's something a lot of people are familiar with now, but I, like you, want to go past positive training.
So I started as I grew up in the horse world, so I certainly grew up in the, force will get you where you're going. Intelligently applied corrections can certainly be effective training tools, but outside of working a horse officially, that's just not how I interacted, and the same thing with dogs. And so I shifted away from that towards a much more motivational, positive, used a lot of rewards. And there is still something that was a big difference between how I lived with my animals and how I trained or worked them. And, there was that concept as a trainer, you go out to work an animal.
Right.
Not so much a joint two-way street as I'm gonna make you do this. So then when you switch to motivational, and this is what positive training is about, I want to make this dog want to do what I want him to do. And so it's still about what you want him to do.
Right.
And that's a reality of life with animals, is that there does have to be a point where you've put them in a position where that's how it has to be. You need to teach them how to work with you within this framework of life we've given them. They're not free to walk away. And so I still kept thinking there's a lot missing, and what was missing sometimes was the concept that the dog doesn't live in a vacuum. He's not a Skinner pigeon or lab rat sitting in a sterile environment hoping something will show up to amuse him. He lives in a world. So the horses were already busy having a day and talking to their horse friends and amusing themselves with chasing chickens and talking to the goats. My dogs had a rich life, and then I would interrupt it with, I have this important thing to teach you.
That's right.
So the positive training helped, but it still seemed what I call the obscene question, the indecent proposal. I know you don't want to do this animal, but look, I've got hot dogs, I've got bits of chicken, I've got a cookie. Now will you do it? Still wasn't the willing cooperation I wanted. So then I stepped back further and thought everything's about the relationship. So whatever it is I'm going to do with or to or for this animal is always calculated in terms of how will this impact my relationship with this animal. And so when I start with that as the nucleus of all I do, the overarching framework, I make very different decisions than a trainer who says, I'm being fair, I have cookies, I'm gonna make this happen. And so they'll do it in a kind way, but there's still not a two-way street going on. And if it is not good for the animal, it doesn't always get on their radar. I've seen many trainers take fearful dogs, push them into situations they actually can't handle very well,
Mm-hmm.
and then say, well, I gave him lots and lots of chicken. We had hot dogs. If I just pay him enough day after day after day, he'll be fine, instead of saying, wait. Can you imagine saying to a friend, I know you're afraid, I do, but I've got a lot of cookies here.
There is not enough cookies in the world to ask me to hold a snake, Suzanne. I know totally what you're talking about.
Exactly. It's like, oh, no. As long as we have enough wine and enough cookies, I'm sure I can get you to walk around with this boa. And we might get some cooperation depending on our friend, but we start to erode their trust in us. We would not feel heard by that person, and I think that's one of the things that animals look for, as all of us do, is, do you hear me? Because if you hear me, then maybe I can trust you. But if you don't hear me, this is why we have leashes. This is why we have collars and harnesses, because we need to keep their bodies with us, because we don't have their minds with us. So that's
well, and that traditional training, I think, also takes away a lot of the joy of our time that we spend with our animals. It's very different when you have a relationship with your dog than when he's being a good soldier and doing what you tell him.
Right. If your relationship consists of, and this is a common thing among some highly regarded trainers, is unless you're working with them, they should be resting quietly, waiting for you to come back and start the fun again. The concept that an animal could have a rich, full life and friends and stuff to do that you interrupt from time to time, as you do with any friend's life, they don't like that concept. And there's a training philosophy that says, I call it taking them hostage, but no one else plays with them, no one else talks to them, no one else ever rewards them. All good things come from me. So there's an article on my website about that one, hostages and relationships. Like, if we cross that out and we hear a man say that about his wife, or a mother say that about her child, we would be horrified.
That's right.
We would think that's not a relationship. That's the Stockholm Syndrome at work. So when we have freedom, it's one of the war cries, right, of the marine mammal trainers. We don't need shock collars. We don't need choke collars. Well, no, you don't. They're already hostage. All their food, water, and all entertainment they have comes from you. So that sets up a dynamic that I'm not particularly fond of. So yeah, if the relationship is how we sort, is this good for me and my animal, that changes everything. Changes everything. It's what I call keeping the light on in their eyes. If the light's not on, why?
That's right. What do you think?
Why?
What?
I said, if I see that light starting to dim because of something I did or chose to do or didn't do, then I've got a big obligation to fix that.
Right, to get that connection back. What do you think most people miss when they're trying to have a relationship with their dogs, do you think? Like, you see thousands of clients, and some of them will come to you and say, I have a great relationship with my dog, and you might not see that. What do you think lots of people don't get?
I think what they don't get... Hang on one second. Hey, Mila. I think one of the things they don't get is that they're not listening for the answers.
Exactly.
So that if I'm talking to you and I say something, then you're listening to my answer, and then your answer informs my answer, and my answer informs your answer, and we go back and forth. So I see that people don't wait for the answer, and they don't seem to actually trust that the animal is even working on the question. So I talked about a moment at a seminar where this very interesting hound mix, I asked her to do something, and you could see her thinking about it. It was a new request. It changed the dynamic of what we were doing. And so I just waited because I could see the wheels turning, and I knew she was contemplating what she was going to do about that. But what caught my attention was that the trainers in the audience began to get very restless. So after about 30